Inflation rates in Canada. Are they high? Are they low? Did we get away with it? Or is it as bad as in some parts in the world right now? I will tell you right now. Unfortunately, here in Canada, we did not get away from the inflation. So in 2013, it seems our inflation rate is, I will check, 5.2%. Last year, it was in 2022, 6.8%, and in 2021, 3.4%. The important thing, what many people actually do not think about when they think about inflation rate is, it's accumulative. So year after year, and that's the problem. If last year you had interests raising inflation on something, then this year it's on top of last year. And the year after, it's on top of the top of the top. So it's much higher than just 1 or 2%. It's actually like 10% suddenly. And that's a huge issue. What got most affected here in Canada by the inflation? First of all, I will cover something very important. This is the real estate market in Canada. Because the real estate in Canada, of course, it has been affected by the inflation rate. But it was crazy anyhow from the beginning. In Canada, you maybe know, if you're from America, you know maybe about Vancouver and Toronto. They are insanely expensive real estate markets. How insane? Well, an apartment costs you close to downtown $1 million. Yeah, a house $1-2 million or more. It's just ridiculous. Only the top 1 or 10% in Canada, or maybe the 1%, 10% of foreigners who are coming here, can buy them. And many are just investors. So housing was anyhow in those areas unaffordable to begin with. So the inflation there doesn't matter. But here in the other places, it did affect a bit the prices as well. Then let's talk now about groceries and goods. Yes, they went up everywhere. And foods and such, really unfortunate, because this affects the poorest people. People in low income families and lower. And yeah, every food here has been increased in price. And Canada, it hit really hard. One of the reasons is because many groceries and goods we are getting from abroad. We're getting it from the United States. And when it goes about fruits and some vegetables, we're getting them from the States, from Mexico, Middle America and South America. Transportation costs and so on are going up, meaning we pay a lot for our groceries. So all this caused many problems here in Canada as well. One of the problems is with the food banks. They have a huge issue. They don't have enough food for the people. And I was there recently because I'm still poor, so sometimes I go there. And I can tell you, there's not much more anymore. They are giving out less than before and less often. 13 years ago, when we came to Canada, we were really poor. So we went to the food bank for a short time. I can tell you, the amount between 13 years ago and right now, it was double. I would say it was double as much as we receive right now. This is really crazy, and you have to think about families who really depend on the food from food banks, and now they don't have it. The problem for this is the following. Food banks, they get donations and donations are like foodstuffs, goods, and of course money from the government, but also from private people. So if now suddenly the prices are going up year after year with the same amount of money, they can buy less and less, so they can only give out less and less. And a second problem comes in with it, and this is because of the inflation and poverty and economic downturn. Less people donate to food banks. So not only is food more expensive for food banks to buy, they have less money now to buy food for the poor people. And governments talked about giving them some more money. I think some gave them a bit more money. I know in Alberta they did. Here maybe too in Saskatchewan. But overall, the food banks are clearly saying they need more money, but are not receiving as much as they really need to provide food for the poor people. Now, very important, what is being done to address this situation, to change maybe something? Well, you know, politicians, they talk much, they say much, but that's the other thing. The one thing is, Canada, the government currently has been clear. They are concentrating on creating a growing economy and growing job market, because if people have jobs, they can feed their family, and it makes sense, right? But the opposition party and other parties are saying, well, yeah, it sounds good on paper if people have jobs and if people can work. Unfortunately, there are people like people with disabilities, single mothers, single parents, and so on. Many groups, many people who have a legit reason why they cannot go working. So for them, it's a terrible situation because the government is focusing on getting the economy back, getting the economy growing, and not supporting those people. There have been support, but not enough, and not everyone received that support. Another very important point I first didn't want to talk about because it's controversial, could get me into trouble saying this on YouTube. More and more experts, also news reporters, news and so on, have said the numbers that not only Canada but more and more of the Western countries are providing are not accurate and should not be taken completely seriously, and we should maybe put 1 or 2% on top of the inflation rate. And this is not just with the inflation rate, but with poverty rates and everything else. Because maybe you don't know, but politicians sometimes like to lie or stretch the truth just a little tiny bit. So I personally, just my personal opinion, think usually it's worse than politicians say, because they have interest in saying no, everything is fine, everything is doing well, vote again for me, right? I'm doing well. Lastly, what I would like to say is that I heard of a few stories from people talking in the food banks about food banks and poor people, saying unfortunately right now they cannot have 3 meals a day anymore. Sometimes they have 2, sometimes they have only 1 meal a day, a small meal, because they're saying they don't have any money because there are people with disabilities, people who got injured and so on. Very many good reasons why they cannot go back to work or work at all, and are now stuck with the social welfare system. And as everything gets more expensive, they get less, and now they can't feed themselves and their families. It is really tragic. Even though this might have been a negative subject to talk about, I hope you got some information out of it and you know more about the situation. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.